Let's jump to this next story. This is in speaking about what's going on with the border. We got this tweet from Thomas Massie. You may have seen the video. Rep. Thomas Massie posted a video of the U.S. House of Representatives under the direction of Speaker Mike Johnson, Democrats celebrating his total capitulation with no victory for securing our border. And here is a video of all of these people in Congress waving the Ukrainian flag. Yes, they're all very, very... So,
and you know, that's breaking the House rules, by the way. You can't fly. You can't fly a foreign flag on...
Really?
No.
Well, here's fascinating.
And I think
Thomas Massie tweets, instead of fining Democrats for waving flags, the House Sergeant at Arms just called and said, I will be fined $500 if I don't delete this video post.
Yeah.
Mike Johnson really wants to memory hold this betrayal of America. Now, Mike Johnson tweeted he doesn't agree with the fine and he's going to put in a good word. But it is shocking to see our representatives flying the flag of a foreign nation as they vote to send our money to a foreign country unjustified while our border is in crisis, while our country is dealing with inflation issues, while our country is dealing with healthcare issues, while our country is dealing with gas prices, jobs, all of these problems that need to be solved.
Absolutely. Well, and it goes so much deeper than that. You can say honestly, calmly, not even bombastically, as a blanket statement, quality of life has not approached what it was in 2019, and everyone knows it. Everyone knows it. Just 5 years ago, life was far easier for people. You're getting to the point where even very wealthy people are having trouble maintaining the standard of living they used to have. They talk about goods getting cheaper. Country clubs are cutting corners. What about poor people? What about people who are already struggling to afford food? This country is in a horrible position right now, and we're just giving what else we have left away.
Yeah, and it's going to get worse. One of the senators during debate today pointed out that the Social Security the Social Security Fund is going to run out in 10 years. Our Highway Transportation Trust is going to run out, and I think in 2028. Again, I don't even know that the federal government should have these things. But if you're the left and you say, yes, federal government should pay for all of these things, how can you also say we're going to send all of our money away as opposed to deal with these things that are specifically designed theoretically to address domestic problems?
But it gets even more frightening, right? Because one thing people will look at when we talk about the national debt is the debt to GDP ratio, which is it's fair and it's an interesting way of looking at things. But at some point, when your debt gets bad enough, you just have to look at whether you're capable of taking care of the interest payments each month.
Wow.
And the interest payments, if rates rise to historic averages like 6%, I mean, it's going to get to the point where a massive percent of our budget is literally just going to be going to paying off the interest on the national debt. I mean, we are in serious financial trouble here.
Well, don't frighten me. I start Social Security payments this November. So
I never start them, sir.
We'll never have them. That's the thing. Like,
I'm going to get mine.
It's just a myth that I heard about one time. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
I hope it's great.
Well, me too.
Must
me
be
too.
nice.
I'll let you know. No, but point to your point. It's like we are spending $8 billion a day. $8 billion a day, and we're like only appropriating about $4 billion. So that's $6 billion we're printing every day. $6 billion, and to that point, it's like, Tim, I've watched your stuff over the years. I'm fundamentally not against military spending because I think most of the military spending is useless. Much of what I've seen spent, you know, when I was in Afghanistan, I would walk into this tactical operations center, and literally wall to wall are these $10,000 a pop plasma TV screens. Like, really? Is this going to help us kill the Taliban better by having all this really cool screens? And that's what's going on now. That's what you're going on with Ukraine. So all this money we've seen, $300 billion. Think about that.
Yep.
$300 billion. What could we have done to create high-speed trains, improved airports, student debt, all these things which I think are clearly American issues are being ignored, and yet we get the Ukraine flag on the floor of the House.
It almost looks like we're being invaded, right? Their flags are everywhere.
From every direction.
I would rather give that $300 billion to a random guy.
Yeah.
In the United States, just like
I'll take it.
We just spin the old Social Security. You put all the Social Security numbers in a bucket. You spin it around. You grab one. And you go, John Smith. $300 billion to you because at least you'll spend it here, I guess.
Tim, I would rather give the presidency to a random person. Same thing. Spin the wheel.
Yeah.
I'm fine with it at this point.
Agreed.
But
there was like some poll. They were talking about Fox News that the DNC did like focus group tests on Kamala Harris, and everyone hates her. And the funny thing about the story is they needed to do a focus group to figure that out.
Did they ask Willie Brown by chance?
touch
Just
there.
asking?
Well, I feel
Well,
like
no,
they're
but
doing it to try and defend themselves. They're like, no, if we just ask the right people, it'll be like her numbers are getting better, but they just get worse and worse and worse. I mean, can you imagine being that deeply unpopular and you're the vice president to Joe Biden? It's rough.
Well, she has taken the office to a new level of high that the high is so high. The high is so high that we are amazed at how high the high is. As a matter of fact, the high is so high, I am amazed at the highness of the highness.
Like, this is
so high.
inspirational.
It's so high.
She's so high. But no, I hear you on that. I want to touch on the point you made about military spending there. I mean, the Pentagon fails its audits all the time, as you pointed out. I mean, you'll see ridiculous spending. And I did an educational cartoon on this a while ago for the Foundation for Economic Education on just examples of insane amounts of money we spent on things. And you look at it and you go, okay, was this money actually spent on that, or was the money being laundered and hidden and sent somewhere else? I don't know. But what I will say is this. You have to build some trust up with the American people at this point, right? I mean, the military has not exactly, and I mean the military leadership here, has not exactly done what they've needed to do in order to make the American people feel as if they're going to A, protect them, and B, spend their money wisely. And we're just shipping money to other countries, and it gets to the point where everyone knows it's a racket, and they're sitting here, they're doing it, and they're laughing at us. The question is, what are people going to do about it?
There have been these stories periodically where it's like the military says we don't need any more tanks, and then Congress is like, more tanks.
Give them more tanks.
We're going to spend the money because we got to spend the money somewhere.
Well, but I know Lloyd Austin. I was in combat with Lloyd Austin when he was a one-star general. And I can tell you, based on my experience, Lloyd Austin is a guy who's going to go along with whatever the mainstream wants him to do. And that's part of the problem. You don't have Schwarzkopfs who are willing to say, enough's enough. I'm a Reagan guy. I'm still friends and mentors with Ed Meese and other Reagan folks. Reagan was the only president I know of that actually funded a strategy. In '86, he got to the point of where he sufficiently reached what they felt they needed to overwhelm the Russians, and they cut the defense budget. That's the only president that's ever done that. And it's like, that's what we should be doing. It's like, how do we actually play 5D chess and not just simply spend all this money and hope for the best?
You don't think the Secretary of Defense should just disappear?
Well, you make a really good point.
He did disappear.
He did disappear. He disappeared without telling anyone,
That's
including the White House, because that's how functional the Biden
I told you guys
administration
his
is.
new nickname, right? Zippity Doodads. Oh, can I say that?
we should invade the United States.
That's a great idea.
on board.
I think
Let's do that.
I think their border's our border. That's my radical position.
Right?
I think we
'Cause
should secure it.
I'm like, we could do some nation building in the United States.
That'd be fun.
What if we said we're
build some
securing?
roads, maybe.
Someone tell the United States federal government how much oil the United States has,
That's crazy.
and they're going to be
hilarious.
taking over.
Tell
I
them
want-
that
I
we're
want to-
trying to secure Mexico's northern border.
I
and
want
see
to
what they
invade
do.
Alaska. I'm ready to go for the King Crab.
Right? Like, tell them.
Yeah.
I want to
Tell them how
mention
much.
this. You
Massive.
made a point. I can't speak to the specific general you're talking about. I'm not familiar with him, but you make
he's
a
a
point
SecDef.
here.
He's currently a SecDef.
Okay.
Lloyd Austin.
So everyone I know in the military has basically said that officers essentially get to the point where they become politicians, right? And that's
yeah,
a
after a certain
massive,
point.
but and that's a massive problem in our military. Is these are people who are basically acting the way that a standard American politician does, which, as we know, isn't well. And I'm curious what you think about a potential solution to that problem as someone who's actually worked within the system.
So there are officers with integrity. I've advised and worked with a number of them.
Oh, no doubt.
The problem is that the system, the more power you have in a system, the more the system tends to corrupt people. And a lot of people, like George Washington was a rare general by the fact that he walked away from being the Continental Army chief and walked away from being president. It takes someone who understands their personal limits and the ability to kind of rein themselves in. We really don't have that. And so when people get into uniform, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but I'm just going to say it. People who get into senior positions in the military have to become politicians because their job becomes, especially their generals, not all generals, Blaine, just saying if you're watching, that generals tend to then become extensions of the corporate state that Eisenhower warned us about, military, industrial, congressional complex. And that's how it feeds.
I got that romantic view of the military. You ever see the movie The Patriot with Mel Gibson?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so he's like a retired dude, and he's got a family, and his kid gets killed, and then he basically goes to a high-ranking guy who knows him, and he's like, if you'll join me, we will have you, and just writes him a commission and hands it to him. And then you have a legit guy with actual experience who's coming back to teach, to lead, and to win. And then you have today politicians trying to look good on camera, fit the corporate press narrative, and it's not so much about being an effective leader in defense, and it's more so about it seems very bureaucratic and managerial. It's just filling out the paperwork and getting the points on your name and all that stuff.
And we also need more trans representation in the military, of course.
Well, how would we,
how are we
secure our borders
supposed to win
without
a
it?
war? How are we supposed to win a war?
I don't know if did you guys know this? I'm aware of this by direct knowledge, not personally. I'm not transitioning. Just saying. By the way, maybe that's an idea. Maybe the SecDef should transition, like lead the way to being, trans. I mean, he kind of already got cut down there. Just saying. I guess it would be kind of an easy thing to do next. Anyway, my point being is that did you know that you could enlist, Tim? Not that I think you'd want to become other than you are.
Yeah, they cut your hair, man.
Well, they would
shave my head.
They cut a lot of things.
Heavens.
Do you know that they now are using conversion to trans as an incentive?
A recruitment tool.
Yeah, recruitment tool.
Yeah, because they're.
I know people who are involved in that transition process. And by the way, once you're in, you can't deploy.
But is it really?
No, you can't. You're not usable. Are you kidding? You're on drugs. You've been cut. The things don't ever heal completely. You can't be used in the military for a purpose of military.
But is this
purpose?
Which branches?
All branches.
Even the Marines.
Yes.
Wow.
The Marines, I think, are more reluctant to bring people in, but all the branches have been permitted to bring in, using a tool of recruitment. If you want to be Tamisha, you could be Tamisha.
So there's recently I remember a few years ago they did a commercial where it's like the Army commercial and it's someone being like, I have 2 moms.
Yes.
And I'm like, what does that have to do with being in the Army?
Has
right?
nothing.
But they changed it. And I recently saw a commercial for the Army and it was like a guy in a swamp with a gun wearing makeup and actually doing more Army sounding things.
But not drag makeup. That's the commercial they would have made 5 years ago.
Yeah.
No, but I guess the point is maybe they're starting to realize like our recruitment numbers are in the gutter.
They are.
Perhaps we should shift towards masculine fun adventure.
Yes.
I think they're worried about an actual war. So
Yeah.
now they're like,
They're trying to get us into a war.
They're like, you know what? Let's put white males back in the commercials. Like
No,
we think we might actually have
It
to
wasn't
fight.
like
Let's stop. Whatever. Men, instead of trying
Right.
to pander to marginalized groups or supposedly marginalized groups.
No, recruitment numbers are atrocious. I mean, you could
They
probably
are.
talk about this better than I can, but one of the other problems is that the portion of the populations that qualifies to be recruited is extremely small, right? There are tons of people
Right.
who are disqualified immediately.
So the people traditionally who sign up are from the Midwest. During World War II, there was a study. Most of the folks who fought World War II were from the Midwest. They're patriotic, good old boys. We're in one of the good old boy states right now. And so the idea is you want to bring those people in because they don't mess around. They do what they're told, and they're able to achieve military objectives that are assigned. That's the military fundamentally kills people and breaks things. That's it. It's pretty.
The Midwest is like, sign us up.
Sign us up.
There's
We'll
a
go
lot
over
of
it, Aaron.
there's a lot of focus from the military after World War II is making the military a social experiment, so that way
And that's
it's a
the
jobs
issue. And that's the
program.
issue.
You can have your opinion on that, but if you're going to have a military at all, it should be at the very least capable of doing its primary job.
Exactly.
Maybe you can have it be a jobs program. Maybe you can have those kind of things, but you can't lose sight of the primary focus, which is break things and kill people.
So let me say this and be clear about it. I enlisted in 1981. I was a private. I went through training. It was back in those days. And by the way, the 80s were great. You guys missed a great time in the 80s, just saying. But beyond...
Man, this guy's got the 80s, he's got Social
Oh my
Security.
God, it was
He's
great.
just got everything.
I'm all set.
To do
Look, I'm retired. I can hang out. So my point being is that in the 80s when I came in, we really weren't integrated. Black and white minorities were all together in the military. We were all green. And oh, by the way, the other thing, we knew who the gays in the military. We didn't care. It's like, yeah, you want to be gay, go be gay. You want to be a lesbian, go be lesbian. But nobody ever contemplated being cut. And you're a rock and roller. So do you know Cherie Curry? So Cherie and I are very close friends. She came out recently, publicly, against all the mutilation of children. And it's the thing. It's like there's a difference between being trans and being cut, going through in the process, and being gay or lesbian and who you sleep with. There's a huge difference.
Right.
And this is where the line has been blurred to the point of where, yeah, even the gays and lesbians I know don't like the idea of children being recruited, or the idea that even if you as an adult you go into the military because you benefit personally. Do you know how much money we spend on converting a Tim to a Tamisha, or not I'm not picking on you, Tim. I'm not. I'm just saying. I'm just using it. So Hannah to a Hans. I want to pump you up. Yeah.
That's why I have two first names, Hannah Claire, because I'm very female.
There you
And
go.
I'm not
but I'm
changing.
just saying, the military spends a ton of money on this, and it doesn't actually benefit recruiting because you're not going to have a lot of people who
Yeah.
want to become.
I think
a
the
different
issue
person.
isn't recruiting. I think the issue is institutional capture. I think that you have people who are aligned with a cult ideology, and
I agree.
and they're gaining positions of power
Yeah.
and advancing the ideology regardless of what it does.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I agree with you.
I've often referred to it as social fire or cultural fire. It's just a chaotic, destructive force. It expands, it consumes, it's chaos, it destroys. So there's no real reason to try and make recruitment ads that are advocating for gender affirmation or whatever they call it, because that doesn't in any way benefit the military,
Not at all.
the mission of the armed forces, nor this country. But it's happening across the board. Now, I do think we're starting to win. It's pushing back. You know, as I mentioned earlier in the show, which Scott Pressler mentioned last show, unregistered voters are leaning towards Donald Trump. I think a lot of people are saying now everything from immigration to inflation to the woke stuff, the culture is shifting away from this. You had that one OnlyFans woman, right? So these are women selling their bodies online, say, I found God, I'm canceling OnlyFans. I don't want to do this anymore. And there's been a lot of criticism of her, but I think, you know, whether she's telling the truth and she found God or she's lying to make money, that shows people think the right side of history is virtue and not debauchery. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.